You're listening to Women's Dream Enlightenment. Dream decoding, deep discussions, and spiritual stories of self-discovery to inspire your personal enlightened journey. I'm your host, Megan Mary, founder of Women's Dream Analysis. Let's bring in the light. Welcome. Today we have Brandi Van. She is a psychic medium mentor who helps highly sensitive people discover their unique psychic gifts so they can empower themselves to live their life authentically. Brandi's passion is to help people to discover their psychic abilities so they can fulfill their higher purpose to help others, live with intention in their interactions, and listen to their intuition. Brandi knows how alone and lost it can feel when you have abilities and no one to turn to, and has made it her mission to help you develop your gifts so you can live your most authentic life. Welcome, Brandi.
Thanks so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
Yes, I love that introduction, and I love how it emphasizes authenticity, because those are really my pillars of that authenticity, to gain that alignment, to come into abundance with your purpose. So I'm really excited for our conversation today, and really for the listeners to hear a story too. So my first question is what I ask everybody, and that is, what does enlightenment mean to you?
Enlightenment to me, I would say, in when you feel like even if a challenge comes to you, you can handle it. You have the emotional intelligence to be able to get through any situation so that you're always like calm, centered, at peace, and grounded. So I think that's enlightenment for me, is whenever you can just kind of rise above and look how we're all connected and say, like, even though I'm going through this, what is this teaching me? What am I learning from this? Instead of letting it basically bring you down. So when you can just kind of rise above.
Right. So perspective, why is this happening for me instead of to me? All those types of reversals in the mindset, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And that's really important when we're working on developing our intuition as well, because we have to open that doorway, set aside a lot of preconceived notions, and essentially surrender to what is being offered to us that we might dismiss otherwise.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. And if you're not living in the moment, and if you're not paying attention to signs around you and how the universe is interacting with you, then you are going to miss out on that. So it's very important, I think, to become spiritual and to recognize those signs so that you know that you're on the right path and so that you can become at peace.
Yes, one of the things I look forward to each day actually is, how am I going to get led today, and how is it preparing for the fact that it's not going to be what I think, right? So you have your list of what you're going to do, and you start to do that, and then you get pulled over here, and then you get distracted over here. And I feel like that's okay. I feel like it's important to allow that distraction and that pull, because you can set out with your plan, but you have to be open to going down this rabbit hole when you weren't planning on it. You're supposed to be doing something else. Because I think when you do that, that's when the domino effect of the synchronicity starts to happen.
Yeah, and I love that you said you're supposed to be doing this instead, right? So it's like, even though in your mind you think this is what I'm supposed to be doing, then the universe throws something at you that really you're supposed to be doing. So, and you know, it's okay if those aren't congruent. So like you said, you can always do those things tomorrow. But as long as you're looking out for them and that you're okay with it, it's not like you're getting frustrated or stressed that it didn't go the way it was supposed to, because that's life, right? And so we need to be okay with those challenges that come up.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a daily practice. I always talk about, you can talk about these idealist notions of how you're going to approach the world, but you have to reset and practice that every single time, it seems. every single day, every single time, because you have your right brain, your left brain, and they're arguing for that top spot. And one is like, no, we said we were going to do this today. And the other is like, but this, we just saw this, we just came across this person, we just heard this interesting thing. And so, I mean, obviously you got to get your work done and stuff, but I think it's important to be allowed to be led.
Yes, and allow yourself to let go. Also, just let it go and let it guide you, so that you don't always have to be in control. That is the left side of the brain. It always wants to have that control, and it is always that battle going on between the left and right side of the brain. So I totally understand that. And they can work together. So you just kind of have to quiet the left side down, say let the right side come in, or let your heart come in, or whatever's being thrown at you. And kind of let them work together versus one always winning, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And when we're developing our intuition, it's important to give it space and breathing room, but it's also a delicate balance learning how do we work with intuition and the reason? How do the two things work together in a way that they are benefiting us and not challenging each other?
Yes, and that's a hard battle because the left side, your ego really wants to always be in control, keep you in that comfort zone, wants to keep you safe, which is a good thing, right? Like, of course, we want to have it there. But then the right side of the brain comes in and says, no, I want to listen to my heart and my soul, and I want to be led by my inner guidance. And the left side of the brain doesn't like that. It wants to always have that ration and those facts. And so it's a beautiful thing when they can work together to say, hey, like, let's say you go to a doctor and they're giving you medical advice. You want to listen to that. You want to listen to that left side of the brain. But, maybe there's a situation where even though there are no facts, you just need to kind of let go and believe in it. I think that the ego or the left side of the brain is like having a good friend, but they're giving you bad advice today. So like, you don't want to completely get rid of them. They are a great friend. They are trying to help you. But maybe just in this instance, I'm just going to not take your advice today, and I'm going to go with what my intuition said.
Yes, and I was listening to a meditation this morning that said that almost in a nutshell, but it was about fear. And it was about how fear is a companion with us through our lives, and it's there for a reason, but sometimes we don't need its advice. Sometimes it really stops us. It puts blocks in the way of things that don't need to be there. They're unnecessary fears. I guess making that differentiation between reason to be fearful and you're just worrisome, right? And you're projecting. And so it's an agreement, I think, where you're saying, okay, I really appreciate you being there for me. I know you have my best intent in mind, but this time I need you to back down a little bit because this is actually something that could be good for me, right? If you weren't so fearful. Yes.
Yeah. And the fear and worry and anxiety, that is all part of that left side. So whenever you do have those ruminating thoughts or you get those anxious moments, that's when you have to really look at it and say, is this something to actually be fearful of? Or is it just in my mind? Am I afraid of the what if? The what if happened? So that's whenever it's not your intuition. Because the right side of the brain, the intuition is really a place of calm and knowing and an excitement almost versus that fear and worry and anxiety.
So there's so many topics I want to cover today with you. We're going to talk about the Clair senses. We're going to talk about dreams. And we're going to talk about developing the senses and the psychic abilities and how to position yourself so that you can step into those and what you can do with them and how they can really improve your life. So where do we start?
We'll go in the order that you mentioned. So we can talk about the Clair senses first. I feel like that is a great first step. So for people who don't know what the Clair senses are, we all have our 5 physical senses, but then we also have our 6th sense, which is our intuition, which is also called your gut feeling, your instincts, your inner guidance. There's so many different names for it, but whatever you want to call it, that is your psychic sense. And so a lot of people think that they aren't psychic, but we're all born with that. We all have that intuition, that inner guidance inside of us. So the Clair senses are when you can have your five physical senses, but then you're also using that extra sensory perception, that intuition along with the physical sense. So for instance, I'm clairaudient. So I hear messages from spirit. And the way that I hear them is it's in my mind, but it's not my thought. So it's my voice, but not my thought. And so you really have to differentiate, wait a second, did I just think that? Or did that thought just get put into my mind? And so that's how I had to recognize at a very young age that that was spirit talking to me. So you could also be clairvoyant, meaning you have clear visions or images or symbols that come to you, whether they're in your naked eye and you're seeing a spirit, or whether they're coming to you in your imagination, in your mind's eye. So that could be your clairvoyance. There's also claircognizance, which is like a lot of people will say, I know something, but I don't know how I know it. I just know it. So that would be claircognizant. There's also clairsentient, which means that you just feel something. So there's a lot of different clairs. But the most important thing I think about the clairs is that I say to envision that they're each a sport. So let's say clairaudience is baseball and clairvoyance is basketball. Don't need to be good at all of the sports, right? You just need to be good at one sport, at one clair. Go with that. That's the one you want to win at. Because if that's the way that spirit communicates with you, then that's the way. You don't need to be good at all of them. As long as you're getting a message, that's what's important. So if you're learning that you're clairaudient, like myself, do a lot of clairaudient exercises, because that's going to get your clairaudient strongest it can be, and you'll win at it. You don't need to necessarily be clairvoyant or be any of the other clairs, as long as you know that one that you are.
Yes. And I have all of the five, and there's more even beyond that, but
yes.
But I also want to add that one of the other things about clairaudience is, if you're like me and you're very musically inclined, you may get messages in song lyrics.
Yeah, I've heard of that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of my clients will, they'll say, I like, they won't even hear a song on the radio. All of a sudden, their song would just pop into their mind. And when they listen to the lyrics, they're like, oh my gosh, it's totally for me. But like, how did it just pop into my mind?
Yes. And it will not necessarily be a song I even like. It could just be a song that I know because I know a ton of song lyrics. And then I'll hear the song that I don't even necessarily like telling me something. Like, okay.
Well, that's good that you can recognize that and listen to it, because that's something that some people might miss. So that's great.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's so many subtle things like that I think people do miss, for sure. And that's why it's mystified, I would say, the senses, because they feel there's something ethereal that they can't access. And there's so many ways I like to talk about where they are accessing them, and they just don't even realize it.
Yes.
Like when you're thinking about a memory and you start to smell or taste the food that was in that scenario. So, if it's a fall setting, you're all of a sudden thinking about pumpkin, or if, it's some other setting, you're all of a sudden you smell popcorn or whatever it is. I think that's really interesting that happens. And a lot of people say, oh yeah, that's happened to me before, but I didn't know it was that.
Yeah.
So coming up with the ways to demystify the experiences so that they are more accessible and recognizable to the general public is the first step, I think, in normalizing it in a way, making people see that they do have them and they are experiencing them, and they just didn't know what to call it before.
Yes, I 100% agree, because if they don't know what to look out for, then they could be having psychic experiences every day and just not know it. So to go along with what you said, like telepathy, maybe they think of someone and then that person calls them that later that day, or they get a text from them, psychic sense, or you walk into a room and you just get a bad feeling, but that's your intuition. That's your psychic sense telling you something. Or you feel like someone's looking at you, but you turn around, nobody's there. Like, there's so many different ones that people just don't realize, that's the term for it, that's a psychic experience. But yeah, if you don't recognize it, then you don't realize that you're having them, which is so important from the first step.
Yes. And I find sometimes that paying attention to your dreams makes them more accessible because you start to pay attention to things that aren't concrete in the 3D world, and you start to pay attention to corners of your mind where information is coming from that are more subtle. And when you practice the art of subtlety and recognizing those things in your existence that are in the periphery, that bolsters that awareness and can allow more to be noticed.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're dreaming, your guard is down. So there is no ego or intuition there, right? Like it's just these images or these experiences happening to you while you're sleeping. And so your guard is down, and so you allow it more. And so then when you wake up, if you can remember your dream, then it really gets you to look at it because as that guard is down. Yeah.
Yes, and even the practice of learning to remember them
Yes.
is a very beneficial practice in terms of tuning in to your abilities, because we all have the dreams and most of us are ignoring them. And just like our Clair abilities, ignoring them. And so taking one avenue and turning it on is a really good way to activate that awareness as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that of course is the first step. If you don't remember the dream, then how will you ever incorporate it into your life? So you do want to start remembering your dream. And there's really, I don't want to say easy, but like there is a way to do it. So when you're awake, like every half hour, or even just like give your goal of like 10 times a day to say, right now I'm awake. So that way that you're just kind of training your brain to say, right now I'm awake. So then when you go to bed at night, you can start to realize, wait a minute, I'm not awake. Because if you start to keep saying that over and over in your mind, you're actually going to recognize in the dream when you're not awake. So that will help you to start remembering your dreams when you wake up. So that's all people say to keep a dream journal, right? So you want to remember those dreams, but you need a second journal. So that's the biggest thing there is you actually need a dream journal. You need the dream journal to remember the dream, but then you also need your waking life journal because you have to start to see if there's a pattern. What's going on with my life during the day while I'm awake? And that's what messages I get at night from spirit. And once you can start to see a pattern of the stress I went through or the meeting I have coming up or whatever it might be, when you can start to put that pattern together of what's going on during the day and then what message am I getting at night, that's going to give you the truest message or guidance that you're getting from spirit at night. So yeah, people are like, you need a dream journal. I'm like, actually, you need to really
That's
be
funny.
able to figure it out.
Yeah, I actually encourage people to write down in their dream journal, it's kind of a 2-in-1, to write down in there before they go to sleep events of the day, mood that they were in, really recording that emotional state first. So then recording the dream and then recording the mood after so that you have the mood before, during, and after to really examine. And then it's right there and you can see it all. And of course, the reality checks are really important for the lucid dreaming practice, but they're also really important just in terms of cultivating an awareness that has to do with the illusion of reality. So the more that you ask yourself, am I awake? Is this reality? Is this reality? Then you start to notice that there's multiple layers to that.
Yes. Yeah. Which is amazing. It's a lot, but it's amazing.
Yeah. So what do you feel are some of the myths? I mean, we've talked about them a little bit, but what do you feel the myths are that are holding people back from developing their psychic abilities?
Yeah. Some of the myths, I think, like the biggest ones, I think, are people think they can't be developed later in life. Like they just think I either have this when I was born and I should have ran with it then. And if I don't now, I can't develop it, which is just like anything else. If you want to play an instrument or you want to learn to do yoga or whatever it might be, you can do that anytime in your life. It's just like any other skill that can be developed. But I think a lot of people see mediums or psychics on TV and they say, oh, I've been doing this since I was born and I didn't know other people couldn't do that. So it kind of gives them that conception that if they didn't do this since they were young, that they can't develop it, which is 100% not true. Another thing I think is that people think it's scary because they do watch TV or the movies and the poltergeists and all of that. And they think that they're going to open to something that's very bad. There are negative entities out there, but if you know what you're doing in a safe and wise way, if you do get a mentor, even if it's not me, right? Like as long as you have someone that can teach you how to protect your energy, what to do correctly so that you know what you're having enter into your energy field, there's really nothing to be afraid of because you'll know that you're in control and you won't let anything come into your space. So I think that's another big one as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And talk a little bit about the difference between mediumship and psychic abilities, because there is a difference there, a pretty big difference in terms of what you're allowing in and how you're participating, I would say, in that experience.
Yeah, so every medium is psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. So a medium is someone who can talk to a deceased loved one. If you are missing someone, they can give messages by being a conduit of that person's energy and just becoming a channel so that they can give messages of comfort and grieving and love. Where a psychic is someone who might not necessarily be able to talk to someone who's passed away, but they can talk to guardian angels, they can talk to their spirit guide. So they're able to talk to the spiritual realm. They just might not be able to talk to a different. And so in my experience, I found that you really can't teach someone to become a medium. They either have that ability or they don't. But I've talked to other mediums who said that they think everyone talks to them. So there's kind of mixed signals or mixed messages out there. But I'm just talking about my own experience. So that's what I found. So I am a medium and I'm also psychic. So I can talk to spirit guide, guardian angel, anyone who is just me. So yeah, so I'm considered a psychic medium.
So talk about your experience. Did you, as you were saying, some people do, know all about this when you were a child, and did your parents encourage it, or did you struggle with it, or when did you start recognizing that you're a medium? How did you step into that role?
Sure. So I was like probably 10 or 12 and I didn't tell anybody. I was so afraid that people would think I was like crazy or making things up for attention. And like, I was just so afraid to tell anyone about it. But it's the same thing. I was hearing these spirits talk to me and I knew it wasn't me. I knew it wasn't my thoughts. And I also thought a lot of guilt because it was like, I knew these spirits want me to give a message to someone, but I don't know who the message is for. I don't know how to give the message. And so I learned basically how to turn it off for many years. And I just basically ignored them, told them to go away, leave me alone. I'm not going to give your message. So it was like coming from a place of fear of judgment from other people, fear of what do these spirits want. I'm very young. I don't know what to do with it. But then I was in my 20s and it changed on a dime. I had such a profound spiritual experience. My grandma was passing away. My family and I were in her hospice room. She was laying in her bed and we were all holding hands around her. And as she took her last breath, everyone starts crying, but I literally felt her spirit rise above the bed. It was like there was a magnet in my stomach that was telling me to look above the bed. And so when I did, I saw the most like magnificent colors. I don't even think they're in this world. And they were forming a star and it was beating in and out like a heartbeat. And I knew without knowing how I knew that she was at peace, that she was going on to another place, that death was not final. I knew I'd be talking to her again. I knew that her angels were there to welcome her. All this was happening within just like 2 minutes. And everyone around me is grieving. And it really changed everything for me in that moment. I absolutely left the room because it was so, like, I'm not religious. I didn't know what was going on. But my cousins thought it was too sad. And so they came out to the hallway to get me and they thought I couldn't, how sad it was. And it still took me years to tell them what was going on because even though that was comforting to me in the moment, like I didn't know their belief system or if they would even believe that that's what was going on. And by the way, I was seeing this all with my naked eye. This wasn't even in my like imagination. It was in my naked eye. It was just like right there in front of me. So from there, I realized, okay, this is amazing and beautiful. This is nothing to be afraid of. And that's what started my journey. I was like, this is something that I want to explore, that it just kind of eliminated all fear for me. And when I did finally tell my family, probably 10 years after that, they were not surprised at all. Apparently, my mom is psychic, my aunt, my cousins, like everyone's psychic, but nobody ever talked about it. And so nobody is surprised that this is what I'm doing. And I wish they would have talked about it. And that's why I now want to talk about it, because I don't want anyone feeling that way, like how I did, thinking they're all alone with this when there are so many people that are just not talking about it. So yeah, I'm going to be like the spokesperson.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's an amazing story. And I think that's the case with a lot of people. A lot of people, they may or may not find out that their family members have those abilities, or know, or not surprised, or that kind of thing. But regardless, they may find out that their lineage had that. Obviously, these things are DNA related, and the experiences were multi-layer spirits, and we've had multiple lives, and we've had multiple different things happen along the way. We're not just who we think we are. We're a combination of all the things that have come before. And it's so fascinating to hear each person's turning point. And of course, then all the doubt. Like, well, okay, yeah, this was incredibly amazing, but now what?
Yes.
Now what do I do with this?
Yes. Right.
And that's really the beginning of that whole spiritual awakening journey, is now what?
Yes.
And how do I tell those around me? How do I now, being me, who I thought I was, because now I'm not me anymore because of my experience. Now my whole view has changed. Now I feel different about the world. Now I feel different about why I'm here. And I don't know how to move forward. So it's very destabilizing, as much as it is inspiring and
Yes.
fulfilling. It really causes a whole shift.
It does. Absolutely. Even after I had that moment, it was like, exactly, like, now what? Right. So I went on my journey of reading a ton of books and watching a lot of shows and listening to podcasts, but nothing was really developing it. And so I actually gave up for a while. It was like, okay, I guess I just had this one experience and maybe it's never going to happen again. So my friend, who's actually the life coach, she mentioned if there's any mentors out there. And it was so hard to find one. Actually, the medium that helped me, she wasn't even a mentor. I just asked her, could you please take me under your wing? Like, I need someone to help me. And I only worked with her for maybe like an hour a month for 6 months. And she just had my ability to just skyrocketed, because I had someone who could validate what I was going through. You know, if I was doing an experience or trying out an exercise, just tell me like, no, try it this way or try it that way. She just basically took me her exact steps what she learned through her life. It was like her lifetime and how she got to be where she was, and just taught me all of that. And now I put that into the mentorship program along with all the homework that she gave me to do, up to that now somebody just has it. And my clients actually have abilities that I don't even have. And so this program, which I thought was going to get people to become mediums, is becoming people who are telepaths, people who are angelic healers, that, you know, they're doing all these different things that I can't even do. But just by learning these tips that my mentor taught me, they're now finding out what a unique ability they have, which is astounding. I never thought it would get there. But yeah, it's great to just like that, the person that has the journey before you, for them to just hold your hand and say, do this. And yeah, by far, doubt is the biggest thing because of that left and right mind battle. So to have someone that says, no, you're not crazy. I had this too. Just to hear that validation of keep believing in yourself. I believe in you. You have a whole team of spirits who believe in you. Just hearing that over and over, it starts to like take a while, right? Like, I mean, it took me probably a year and a half. I've had people validating. I would give a mediumship reading and they're like, no, you're 100% right. And still in the back of my mind, I'm like, am I making this up? Like, where is this coming from? Because we've listened our whole lives to listen to the facts and the rationality and critical thinking. So when you have to like switch it over, it's very hard to be able to do that, especially by yourself.
Yes, absolutely. That validation is really important. I'm sure that you know this yourself, the way these abilities work, aside from your experience where you saw that with your real eyes, it's all very subtle. And you do almost sometimes feel like, did I just make that up? Did that just pop into my head? Oh, I don't know why I'm thinking that. and you doubt yourself and you say, well, that has no relevance. Where did that come from? Kind of thing. And so you dismiss it. And many times when you're in a reading situation, you're you're just delivering, right, what's coming. And that person may or may not even react in the moment to it and validate it for you. They may never. And so later down the road, they may or they may not, and you may not get that. And so that's part of the reason I think a lot of people dismiss it, is because the subtle nature of it is very slippery, and you feel it's very easy to go, well, I don't know where that came from. That must mean nothing. Which is kind of how people are about their dreams too. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah,
It doesn't
totally
mean
dismiss
anything.
it. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and I even do that myself when I'm in that in between stage between sleeping and waking, and I'm remembering the dream, I'm recalling it, I'm deciding whether I'm going to actually physically move to write it down. And sometimes I'll just say to myself, "Oh, that one doesn't really matter now. But that's just," and then that's because I'm not really fully comprehending it, right? And so I'll go, "Oh, okay, I'll write it down anyway." And then the next day when I go back and look, I go, my God, of course. And the light bulb, because your conscious mind is working on it now.
Yeah,
But when you were
yeah,
coming into that stage, you have the ability to receive. You don't have the ability to analyze. It's not the analysis state. So
yeah,
you have to allow just that receiving, and then you can go and figure it out afterwards. But if you dismiss it too early, it's gone, and you won't
yeah,
have that chance.
yeah, absolutely. And it takes so long to really trust yourself. And once you can trust yourself, that brings on a whole nother world, right? So first you go through this world of everything just changed. Everything, right? You just changed everything, which is amazing, by the way. I would never want to go back. But then once you have this trust, you just like start to release it and say, you know what? I'm going to trust spirit. Spirit is never going to be wrong. It's only our minds that are telling us that maybe it's wrong. But spirit's never going to give the wrong message. So when you can just believe or let go and just be like, I 100% trust spirit, whether I get validation or not, I'm just going to give this message. That's a whole nother awakening in itself of like amazing, beautiful, I don't even know what word to put to it. And it's so real that nobody can tell me that it's not real, right? Like you get to this point of, I almost feel bad for the skeptics out there that think it's not real because they're missing out on this amazing and all these messages through. So yeah, it changes your life again, but all for the better, I believe. I think it's just all just makes you so much, like you said, more authentic, because if I would have hidden my gifts like I was when I was younger, I never would have gotten to this point. I really had to own it and take responsibility for it and say, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do it. Don't let myself stop. And now I'm at this place of just completely trusting in myself and in spirit. And it's an awesome place to be.
It is. It is an awesome place to be, because then you're not feeling lost. You're not feeling out of alignment. You're not feeling without purpose. You're not feeling depressed, right? You're feeling supported. You're feeling that guidance. It's hard to put into words, because our words they're not big enough
Yes.
for what that feeling is. But I guess that's where the term spirituality comes from, because you're really starting to live with the spirits, living a spiritual life. And I think that word is very loaded, and it gets confused sometimes, and it gets misused. But at the basis of it is really that word spirit. And it really is recognizing that we are spirits first, not humans. And it's living from that place, instead of putting all of the basis of our operandi on the human basis.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely spirits with this human physical body, not the other way around, which a lot of people see it as.
Yes. Well, where can the listeners find you if they want to work with you or find out more about what you offer?
Yeah, they can go to my website at brandyman.com. That's Brandi with an I. And if they listen today, if they want, they can sign up for my new free masterclass. It's about 90 minutes. It's all about psychic development. And so they just sign up for it and they'll have a 90-minute class. And then I love to be a light-minded community. So if they don't have anyone in their life to talk to someone to say, this is what I'm experiencing, what do you think? Please tell me I'm not crazy. I would love to be that for them. And they can book a call just so that they have somebody to talk to. I'd talk about this stuff all day. Have a conversation with me if they want for that. So I would just love to hear anybody's story if they don't have anyone.
Fabulous. Well, thank you for sharing your story today and just having this great discussion that I know will be useful to everyone out there who's on their journey.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening. Did you enjoy this episode? You can now send me a text message and share your experience. Be sure to subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Head over to my YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button as well to be part of my growing community. Are you ready to take the next step in your spiritual journey? Don't miss out on the new Dream Empowerment programs. Unique opportunities for you to unlock your inner wisdom, discover your authenticity, align with your higher self, and bring abundance into your life. If you'd like your dream or awakening story featured on my show, submit it today. Your dreams have the power to inspire and enlighten other women on their journey. Visit meganmary.com to find out more.